I liked the Radisson because it had a large, spacious lobby. It felt like staying in hotels you'd see in old movies. I stood aside with my sons, Bradley and Terry. We were waiting for my wife Lauren to arrive for a midweek date. We had planned this day for several weeks, and we were all eager to see how it would unfold. Lauren and I were set to celebrate our silver wedding anniversary next week. We married young and had our boys early. Both were attending Temple University on scholarships. Although we lived in Reading, we usually didn't make it down to downtown Philadelphia. I had never been to the Radisson before, nor had I stayed there. I work in the legal department of an accounting firm in Reading. For the last 10 years, I had a regular weekly meeting with a major contractor for elderly care in Harrisburg. It was one of those meetings that were never canceled or rescheduled. Probably that's why Lauren chose Wednesday for her weekly trip to the Radisson. From Reading to downtown Philadelphia was a 2-hour drive in terrible traffic, so it must have been important to her. I began to suspect something was going on about 2 months ago. It was just little things that caught my attention. The company had a private investigator on retainer, and he was more than willing to take on a small surveillance job between his usual assignments. It was expensive, but I didn't care. It didn't take him long to find out that every Wednesday morning, Lauren would drive to Philadelphia and meet here at the Radisson Hotel with a family friend, Kyle Standish. Lauren always went into the gift shop and waited for Kyle. Upon arriving, he would rent a room and pass through the lobby to the payphone. He would place a small envelope under the payphone and then enter the elevator, always to the 8th floor. Lauren would come out of the gift shop, pick up the envelope containing the room key, and follow him to his floor. They stayed there for about 3 hours and then went their separate ways. Kyle used to work at our company. We had interacted with Kyle and his wife Beth at several company events and even socialized together before he transferred to the Montgomery County office. I hadn't seen him for several years. A few months ago, Bradley and Terry were at a job fair at the Radisson and noticed Kyle coming out of a new red Corvette. They were about to catch up with him and say hello when Terry spotted Lauren in the gift shop. The boys stopped and just watched. They both wondered what their mother was doing in a hotel gift shop 50 miles from home in the middle of the week. I think it didn't take them long to figure it out. About 2 weeks ago, they both reluctantly approached me one evening when Lauren was visiting her sister. That's when I learned about their trip to the Radisson. "Dad, if you knew what was happening, why didn't you do anything?" "Harry, I only found out recently. I don't know what I want. I love your mother, and it's hard to think about life without her. I wish this had never happened, or at least that I had never found out. Now that I know, I can't ignore it. Any suggestions?" "I know a guy who'd be willing to kill Kyle for $500. "That's a bit radical, Bradley. Let's see if we can come up with something less extreme. I plan to call Beth to find out if she knows what's going on. I hope she has an idea or two. We have a light load on Wednesday, so we can help if you decide on something." It was nice to see that my sons were supporting me. I know they love their mother, and the situation must be as difficult for them as it is for me. 2 days later, I saw Beth Standish. She suspected something was amiss but wasn't sure. Beth had caught Kyle doing the same thing with other wives before, and he had promised he would be a good boy. Since she already had enough information about his affairs, she was ready to file for divorce. She asked if I could refrain from any actions while she prepared the paperwork. Setting a date was straightforward. That brings us back to today. Lauren entered the hotel lobby right on schedule and headed to the gift shop. She looked beautiful but slightly nervous. It seemed she had made a special effort for her weekly date, and it was somewhat painful to see. "Hey guys, are you waiting for me?" Beth Standish quietly approached me from behind. "Lauren just arrived and is waiting in the gift shop. If everything goes according to plan, Kyle will be here soon." Lauren browsed magazines in the gift shop, keeping her eyes on the lobby looking for her lover. Soon, Kyle passed by the gift shop and approached the counter. I saw Lauren smile when he appeared. A few minutes later, Kyle stepped away from the counter, stopped at the payphone, and entered the elevator. As soon as the elevator door closed, Terry entered the gift shop. He smiled and greeted his mother with open arms. Lauren looked worried. Wrapping his arm around her waist, he managed to divert her gaze from the lobby. Beth quickly retrieved the key card that Kyle had hidden and entered the elevator. Kyle was a creature of habit. He always took a shower before having sex. Beth planned to wait in the hallway until she was sure he had started. Bradley and I slowly approached Terry and Lauren. What a wonderful surprise. It's so nice to see you here, Lauren. Why don't you join me and the boys for lunch? John, what are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be in Harrisburg. The meeting was canceled today, and I decided to join the boys for lunch. I called home to invite you, but you weren't there. Now I understand why. What are you doing here? It was obvious that Lauren was nervous. I'm here to meet Marcia Phillips for lunch. You remember her, John? We went to elementary school together. She didn't notice the boys smiling at each other as she came up with this unconvincing excuse. That's no problem, Lauren. We'll get a table for 5, and she can join us. Lauren reluctantly went with us to the restaurant. Given the circumstances, she had no choice. Before sitting down, she took out her cell phone. I need to call Marcia and let her know everything has changed. Put the phone away, dear. The room isn't that big. I don't think she'll have trouble finding us. I didn't want my wife calling Kyle while Beth was taking care of her business. Lauren seemed a bit nervous as we sat. The boys behaved somewhat obsequiously, but she didn't notice. Lauren placed her phone on the table next to the silverware. Usually, she kept it in her purse, which was on the floor by her chair. After the waiter took our drink orders, we all sat in silence, looking at the menus. I frowned slightly, seeing them smirk at each other. Shall we wait for Marcia, Lauren, or let her order after she arrives? Go ahead and order now. Marcia was a bit uncertain about making it to lunch. She might not show up at all. I thought that if she doesn't come, I could still go shopping for a bit. Poor Lauren was piling one lie on top of another, trying to save face. I felt sorry for her, but I knew she deserved it. The waiter brought our drinks and took our order. Lauren ordered only a fruit salad. It wasn't even 15 minutes later when Beth approached our table. In her hands, she carried all of Kyle's clothes and his shoes. Hello, Beth. How did everything go? Very well, thank you, John. My loving husband was in the shower, as we expected, and didn't even notice that I was there. I left the divorce papers on the dresser for him and decided at the last minute to take his clothes. Lauren looked terrified. The color drained from her face, and her eyes began to mist over. She looked at me, then at Beth, not knowing what to do. Here's your key, Lauren. Thanks for lending it to me. I won't need it anymore. Beth carefully placed the key card next to Lauren's phone. Lauren stared at it with her mouth open. Her cell phone rang. She picked it up and looked at the number. Without answering the call, she turned off the phone and put it back down. Here, boys. The Corvette is yours until the end of the week. It's in my name, so don't worry about anything. When you're done playing with it, just leave it at home. She handed Bradley the keys to the Corvette. Thanks for the help, guys, but I need to run. Enjoy your meal. Lauren looked at me as if begging for help. I offered nothing. She didn't even glance at the boys. When the waiter brought the food, she apologized and went to the ladies' room. The boys and I had finished eating, and Lauren never returned to the table. I asked Terry to check the restrooms and sent Bradley to the room Kyle had rented. When she left, Lauren left the key card, cell phone, and purse on the table. 10 minutes later, they both returned unsuccessfully. Bradley said the hotel had provided Kyle with a tracksuit while they tried to get him home. Terry checked the women's rooms in the restaurant and the hotel lobby and found nothing. I asked the restaurant manager to arrange for some assistance from hotel security. There were no signs of any illegal or criminal activity. The security team tried to be as helpful as possible, but the only thing they could find was a surveillance camera that showed Lauren heading towards the kitchen, not the ladies' room. Other cameras showed nothing. As a precaution, they called the Philadelphia police. Lauren could not be declared missing, but we could file an incident report for future use if necessary. We waited a few more hours, then decided to go home in case she turned up there. She had left her purse on the table with her credit cards, driver's license, and cash. Lauren was not at home. Epilogue. 2 years have passed since our lunch at the Radisson. Terry is now an Air Force lieutenant. Bradley is in graduate school in California. Beth and Kyle are divorced. We never saw Lauren again and heard nothing about her. I filed a missing person report with the Philadelphia police after the required waiting period, but they found nothing. Legally, I am still married. At some point, I will have to file to change this status. For now, I live alone in a large house. All of Lauren's clothes and other belongings are still here, just as she left them. I try to decide whether the lunch at the Radisson was a good idea or a bad one. I can't make up my mind.